What's happening, Northwestern? What you just saw was footage from Monday night's feature performance at the Historic Jazz Showcase. That was the Mark Colby Quartet performing one of their final numbers of the night. In today's segment, we're going to take a quick look into Chicago jazz. The jazz movement has been and continues to be instrumental in the development of today's black diaspora. This week, I got the chance to sit down and speak with a couple faces of the Chicago jazz movement. Lauren Deutsch, the executive director of the Jazz Institute of Chicago, and Ernest Dawkins, one of the great saxophonists to emerge from the Chicago jazz scene. Ms. Deutsch had this to say about the Jazz Institute and its role in the Chicago music scene.
What exactly does the Jazz Institute of Chicago do?
Well, we program concerts and festivals, and we have, which primarily feature and highlight musicians from Chicago. The Chicago Jazz Festival also features international musicians, but pretty much the mission is to make sure that we're supporting Chicago's jazz artists, so we focus primarily on them. We also have educational programs that send jazz artists into the schools and also work with students outside of the schools. Over the course of the last 45 years, we've been instrumental in helping to support the development of jazz artists, thus, I believe, the music.
What do you think the Jazz Institute does as far... I guess let me rephrase that. You mentioned how, there's kind of a generational thing going on. Jazz is a lot less appreciated, I'd say, in my generation than it was, 30, 40 years ago. Do you think the Jazz Institute, or do you think the music landscape in Chicago, is it all shifting towards younger jazz musicians? And if so, do you see them, being able to really carry the torch of the tradition of jazz in Chicago?
Well, the art form is just a little over 100 years old. That's not very long. That's not very old. And I am of the opinion that the music will keep evolving. And, of course, it's the younger musicians who are coming up and bringing their experience and interests and interpretations of the music who will take it to the next level. I think in every generation, that new approach has been rejected by the earlier generations. Bebop was totally rejected by those folks who had come up loving swing. Like, what is this? We don't like this. You can't dance to it. And now bebop is considered a classic and old school music. So, I don't know what to do about that. It's kind of interesting to me because I really sort of see the whole thing as a whole fabric. And I've always enjoyed listening to all of it, and I've never sort of narrowed my interest and my passion to one particular form of the music.
Right.
It's really what's exciting to me about the younger musicians is that they are so fluent in so many different forms of the music, so that what's possible now is to play with a group that starts out in one time or tempo and can switch to a Latin beat and back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's this sort of cultural, rhythmic, and stylistic fluency that leads to all these sorts of different ways of looking at the music. I don't want to say mashups, but I think that diverse fluency, to me, is the most exciting thing happening for the music and to the music. And I think the lag in sort of the amount of time and attention that the majority of young people play to jazz will eventually catch up, meaning the music is going to be so out there that it will begin to be noticed and attract people who never thought they even, would consider themselves a jazz person.
Following my interview with Ms. Deutsch, I spoke with Ernest Dawkins, one of the leaders of the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians. Please pardon the audio quality. We had a bit of a spotty phone connection.
According to your website, you began pursuing music when you were 8. What inspired you to start playing jazz music?
I started playing music at 8. And my father had an extensive record collection. And I was was into jazz, but I knew the music. And I would go to the Regal all the time. I would,
I'm sorry, you would go where?
to the Regal. The Regal's like the Apollo.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Regal Theater.
The Regal Theater.
Okay.
Like the Apollo Theater.
Right.
And it was on 46th and King Drive School. But anyway, I would take my money that I was supposed to go to Sunday school with, and I would go down to the Regal, and I would hear all the groups, the Motown Review, which was the Spinners, Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, Four Tops, Temptation, The Miracles, etc. So I would hear all the groups play. So I was drawn to it because it was in the community. I knew the music. Then I started playing like percussion when I was in high school. And that was some rock groups. And then after I graduated, I got involved with jazz. Some guys moved on my block from St. Louis. They were part of the BAG organization. Do you know anything about that?
No, sir.
That's the name of the association. It was like equivalent to the ACM.
Okay.
And those guys moved on my block. So they would play all the time. And, all the guys that played at the Jazz Showcase would come up to their house. That's Freddie Hubbard, Joe Anderson, McCoy Tyner, all those guys. That's how I met all those guys. At their house. You know who they are, right?
Yes, sir.
Right. So that's how I met them. So then one day this guy, and they would practice all night, play all day. So anyway, one night I was laying in my bed, man, and can't come home from my job, because I always kept me a job, because I like to dress and do what I need to do for myself. So I was laying up after I came from my job, man, and I was sitting on the bed at night, and this guy started playing, man. He sounded just like Charlie Parker. His name was Ego Sinclair. He played just like Bird, man. This cat, he had Bird. So I said, man, shit. I said, that's me. And I had like an epiphany. Next day I got up, man. I went and bought me an alto saxophone. Within a week I had a clarinet and a flute. Between that year I graduated from high school and the time I went into college, I kind of like taught myself enough to get into a music school. I went to Vanderbilt Music School. So by that time my people told me, look, you can't practice in the house. You play bass, you play drums, you're not playing the horn in this house. So every day I would have to go and practice in the park when I first started playing before I went to college, before I got into Atlantic. So I would go down there and I taught myself scales. So the guys would hear me playing all the time. That's what I meant, like, what's Jerry's name? I can't think of his name, but he was a tenor player. Had a very big sound. But anyway, so I met this guy named James Johnson. He said, man, you need to go to the AACM School of Music. I said, what is the AACM School of Music? He said, just go. They give free lessons, free music classes. So I went, and it's kind of like the rest is history.
So how has jazz music shaped your identity, and how has it influenced the way you see yourself, and how you see the black community as a whole?
No, that's a good question. Boy, I am the music, and the music is I. So I'm just a reflection of the community, am I? So the culture and the music is the last bastion for us. Because it's really a culture of war. I mean, even in you can see it. There was no, even in pop music, no blacks are nominated for any major Grammys. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir. Yes,
just need another minute or so, bro. By the way, I appreciate your time so far. So yeah, well, I mean, what do you think the appropriation of jazz has? You think that's had an effect on jazz music and the jazz community?
You got 15 minutes, man.
Sure.
I just think that I think I said it already. I said that there's a disconnect with the culture and the community.
Mm-hmm.
And see, I don't blame it all on white people. We have to own what's ours. And then it's how you define your culture. And we haven't taken enough time to define who we are, what we are, how we are in relationship to the world. And this culture that we have here has influenced every other culture everywhere. Our music, our dance, our art has influenced every other culture